for being here. I think that it's my understanding there's a possibility of some changes here, and I'll let you guys explain them.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I will refer to our reviser to begin the explanation.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Conference Committee, the balloon that has been handed out is the Senate position on Senate Bill 384, so it retains the variance language on page 2 to authorize the EMS board to still grant permanent variances from regulations implementing 65-6135. However, also on page 4, it would add in a blanket exemption for EMS ground vehicles that are based in a city with a population of less than 50,000 or a county with a population of less than 50,000. And for those EMS providers, the EMS board could not require more than one person on the vehicle to satisfy those certification requirements under subsection B. As I read this, they could still require 2 individuals staff the vehicle, but only one of those individuals could be required to have that certification. The EMS provider would not have to go through the variance process for that. It would be in statute that the EMS board could not require both individuals be certified as required under subsection B.
And Madam Chair, that's the only change that we're proposing. We understand the clarification that was made on the rest of the verbiage that was already in statute. Thank you.
Jason, I have a question as to, would you just tell us what specifically makes this language different from what passed across the Senate floor?
Yes. This language is different in that it creates a blanket exemption for EMS providers in those rural cities and counties with populations of less than 50,000. It is different from the bill that was introduced because it specifies that the EMS services must be based in those rural cities or counties, and also only restricts the EMS board to requiring multiple people on the ambulance be certified, but does not restrict their ability to still require 2 people staff those vehicles.
Questions from the committee? Anyone? Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I know I keep asking this question. Does this allow in any circumstance for the driver to be the only person on the ambulance?
The EMS board could still require 2 persons be staff each ambulance, and that one of those individuals be a certified EMT doctor. It would not allow for a single person to staff an ambulance if the EMS board restricts that by rules and regulations.
Okay, so the EMS board, not the legislature, would be making that decision.
That's correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have 2 questions about this language. One, would we want to specifically say to operate with a minimum of 2 persons, but only one has to satisfy the requirements? So if we wanted to be sure that if the legislature wants to be sure that there are 2 people, we could do that by modifying this. And then my other question is really, why would we pick 50,000 for both county and city, that same number? Because it seems like, I think we heard that Johnson County had quite a few cities, and especially when we add based in a city, you could be in a city of 70,000 and decide to work with the services of your neighboring city because they only had 45,000 people and fewer restrictions. I know that some cities could contract out some of these services.
Madam Chair, and in response to that, I think our goal was the least, and people we talked to was leave that, rather than put that in statute, that would basically leave that up to EMS and local people to make that decision. So, you know, I don't really, the 50,000, I think, was just a situation to protect some rural counties from some of the two-person requirements. I don't know where that number come from as far as magical, but
in any county with a population of less than 50,000.
Yes. So, Senator, are you saying just maybe leave it as 50,000 in any county? Is that what you're saying?
I was suggesting that because if we hear about rural counties, it's really the county population that we're looking at, not necessarily a city.
Madam Chair, would it be appropriate, we have a person sitting in the gallery that may have a comment on that from the league? Okay, you check. It's the one with the funny-looking tie.
I'll give you a statistic if this helps your conversation. There's only 10 counties in Kansas with populations more than 50,000, so that leaves 95 that qualify. And there's only 9 cities in the state of Kansas out of 625 that have 50,000 or more today. So the other 600, don't ask me to start doing math. So if that helps you with that number encompasses, it's almost everybody except the big folks. And so that's kind of how we came up with that number. That number was, I won't say it was arbitrary, but that's just the number that we all decided, we being the league, and we talked with the revisor that we threw in there. There was no science behind it at all, to be honest with you. So that just gives you context if that helps with the numbers of what that it captures with that number.
Chair, thank you. Spencer, is there any problem you see with being the county at 50,000 and the city at 50,000, both being in the same verbiage? Is that going to create, like in the example of Johnson County, that?
I don't think so, and I think we talked about this when we wrote, because they're still viewed independently through, in other words, I don't think anyone views them as one, if that makes sense. It's not plus one, it's each one's looked at their own entity, own municipality.
Okay.
So that's how we've interpreted it. I've been wrong before, but.
Thank you.
Well, so this was another question for Spencer. So did you look at the difference? I mean, you're telling us that almost all the counties would already fall into this.
Correct. So if that threshold is too high for you, understood, you can make a change.
But I'm saying, so how many, did you look at how many cities were, had a population of less than 5,000 that were not in one of those
I don't have that
counties?
number, but it's 100 and, cities total that are less than 5,000 is a little less than 100, I think. But they'll still qualify because they're all in, yeah, I don't know. I didn't look at that map, but I think they're pretty much going to be okay. Yeah. And honestly, I know we don't like to pass, we can fix that if we need to once we find out that's a problem. Because I don't think most of those cities that are that small are using county services already or from another, they don't have their own, unless it's a volunteer department or something. So the smaller you get, the less of these services are going to be impacted. This bill's mostly going to help the people in that 15, 20, 25,000 range. I mean, if that makes sense.
And we still have the variance.
As I read this, yes. I mean, as I read this, this is doing its best job to capture your very different positions in the House and the Senate. It's retaining that Senate language, which still provides the EMS board the variance authority and offers that variance, while also recognizing that the House wanted some of it to be stripped down to statute and keeping that very limited at the same time. So I kept, as I think I told you all, trying to find a third option, and this may be as close as you're going to get. So good job to whoever thought this one through.
I don't want to prolong this, but in listening to Spencer define what's 50,000 or less, and then finding out from Senator Bowers that it all started with 5 and 10, I would just like to have, for me, I just need to kind of think this through as far as the impacted city counties. And I was wondering, I think we're almost there. I just need to, going from ag to this to tax. So take a look at it. And I was thinking maybe we could meet briefly after the second adjournment. I mean, the 2 o'clock when we're both breaking there. Could we just meet? And then I think we can probably just wrap it up.
That sounds good. And also, we would like to present 162 that the Senate passed as an addendum into this shell to be able to consider to the House floor. But wanted to keep that separate as a separate discussion. And you've already brought that to us, and we never did get it taken care of. Senate Bill 162 to the Riley County and Crawford County. And Jason's work. Get Jason.
162 is currently sitting in the House, and so it would need to be put into a conference vehicle, and I think the House is suggesting adding it to the provisions of Senate Bill 384 and making this an act concerning cities and counties. With the caveat that it's pushing the line on single subject, but I will work a title that would be arguably single subject.
So my committee members, are you okay with considering that? Okay.
And it was a 34 to 5 vote.
Representative Featherston.
I've done a little phone a friend research. So Johnson County staffs countywide on their EMS, but I'm looking at the breakdown of these counties at the 50,000 line. So at the bottom of the 50,000 line, Saline, Reno, Butler, Riley, and then the counties you would expect. And then the next significant population number is 39,000. So if 50,000 isn't the number we're comfortable with, if we're really trying to help rural, small, like, there are drops, and then when you hit, the next drop is maybe 36 to 34, and then you start having pretty significant drops in county population. I'm not really sure I'm comfortable with, like, even city population being included, because I've got cities with like 6,000 people in them in Johnson County, which I guess won't apply because they EMS the whole thing. Also, this seems like it's putting in statute what the EMS board is already doing, so I wonder if there's really purpose for this, since it is already occurring at the board, who are the qualified professionals in this area.
San Francisco, are you wanting to respond? All right, okay. You took a breath, so I thought you did.
I think I like the idea of county rather than city as being the range. I think if we have this break, we could all take a little look at that list, and perhaps Representative Featherston could consider us all friends. in providing that information. And then, I do recognize that if it's already happening, it's happening through that variance process. So this would considerably reduce those requirements.
All right, well, we'll just, cross our Ts, dot our Is, take a look at that, give Jason time to put 162 in. And I'll communicate with you, and we'll kind of see what the progress is on the floor after too, okay? All right, thank you.